A few years ago, Huawei was unstoppable. Their phones were everywhere. Their technology powered networks across the globe. And then, suddenly, it all came crashing down. Banned from Google, cut off from chips, labeled a national security threat. This is the story of how one of the world's fastest growing tech giants became the center of a global showdown, caught in the middle of a modern Cold War between the United States and China. To understand Huawei's fall, you first have to understand its rise. The year is 1987 in Shenzhen, China, a dusty fishing town just beginning its transformation into a technology hub. A former army engineer named Ren Zhengfei set up a tiny company called Huawei. At first, it was nothing glamorous. They were building telephone switches, hardware China needed but couldn't buy in bulk from the West. Huawei's early strategy was simple: reverse engineer, improve, and sell at home. Fast forward a decade, and Huawei wasn't small anymore. By the early 2000s, they were competing head-to-head with European heavyweights like Nokia and Ericsson in building telecom equipments. But the real turning point came with the smartphone revolution. In 2010, Huawei entered the smartphone market. At first, people dismissed them, cheap knocks-off, nothing serious. But Huawei had bigger plans. They poured billions into research, design, and marketing. They partnered with Leica for camera technology. They built their own processors, the Kirin chips, and it worked. By 2018, Huawei had leapfrogged Apple to become the second largest smartphone maker in the world. Their phones had some of the best cameras on the market. Reviewers called them bold, innovative, even superior to Samsung in some areas. In just a few decades, Huawei had gone from a scrappy startup to a global icon of China's rise in technology. But that success came with a problem, because while Huawei was conquering the consumer market, another story was unfolding in Washington. To the US government, Huawei wasn't just another tech company. It was a potential Trojan horse. Here's why. Huawei was the world's biggest supplier of telecom equipment, the hardware that makes our mobile networks work. 4G, 5G, the very backbone of digital communication. For US officials, that raised alarms. What if China could pressure Huawei to insert backdoors into that equipment? Secret access points that could let Beijing spy on conversations, data, even critical infrastructure. Huawei denied it over and over. They said, "We are independent, we are private, we don't answer to the Chinese government." But trust was already broken. In Washington, security and politics often overlap. And in the race for 5G, a technology that promised to transform industries from smart cars to entire cities, Huawei's dominance was seen as too risky. By 2018, the whispers had grown into warnings. US officials started telling allies, "Do not let Huawei build your 5G networks. It's a matter of national security." Some countries listened immediately. Australia and Japan banned Huawei. Others, like Germany, were more cautious. But soon, the fight was about to turn into something far bigger than warnings. December 2018, Vancouver, Canada. Huawei's chief financial officer, Meng Wanzhou, Ren Zhengfei's daughter, is arrested at the airport. She is accused of violating US sanctions by doing business with Iran through a hidden front company. Her arrest shocks the world. For Beijing, it's seen as a political attack. For Washington, it's law enforcement. But behind the headlines, this moment marks the opening shot of a much bigger campaign. Just months later, in May 2019, the Trump administration takes a dramatic step. It puts Huawei on the US Entity List. That sounds technical, but here is what it means. American companies can't sell technology to Huawei without government approval. Overnight, Huawei loses access to the tech that powered its empire. Qualcomm chips, Intel processors, even Google's Android services. No more Gmail, no more YouTube, no more Google Maps. Think about that. If you bought a Huawei phone outside China, suddenly it couldn't run the apps you used every day. That alone made Huawei phones nearly unsellable in huge parts of the world. It was like pulling the rug out from under the company, and it was just the beginning. The Huawei ban wasn't just about one company. It became the symbol of a larger fight. The US went on a diplomatic campaign urging allies to keep Huawei out of their networks. Countries like the UK eventually gave in. Others tried to walk a fine line, balancing American pressure with Chinese investment. Meanwhile, Huawei scrambled to survive. They built their own operating system, Harmony OS, as a backup to Android. They tried to design their own chips through their semiconductor arm, High Silicon. They stockpiled components hoping to outlast the storm. But in 2020, the US turned up the heat again. New rules banned any company in the world that used US technology from supplying chips to Huawei without a license. This was devastating. The world's most advanced chip maker, TSMC in Taiwan, stopped working with Huawei. Without access to high-end chips, Huawei's smartphone business went into free fall. In just 2 years, Huawei went from number 2 in the global smartphone market to barely hanging on. The message was clear. Technology wasn't just business anymore. It was geopolitics, and Huawei had become the front line of a new kind of Cold War. So, did Huawei die? No, but it changed. Cut off from Google and advanced chips, Huawei shifted its focus. They doubled down on their network equipment business, especially in regions less influenced by the US, Africa, the Middle East, and parts of Asia. They expanded into wearables, laptops, and smart home devices. They grew their cloud services inside China. Most importantly, they poured billions into research and development. And then in 2023, Huawei surprised everyone. The Mate 60 Pro, a smartphone powered by a chip made in China. Experts argued about how advanced it really was. Some said it wasn't on par with Apple or Samsung, but the symbolism was clear. Huawei wasn't out. They were adapting and they were fighting back. The release of that phone sparked debates across Washington. Had the US really crippled Huawei, or had the ban only pushed China to accelerate its own tech independence? The Huawei saga isn't just about one company. It's about how technology has become the new battlefield of global power. Think about it. A smartphone isn't just a glass and chips. It's a product of a vast global supply chain. Software from America, chips from Taiwan, manufacturing in China, tools from Europe. Break one link and the whole system collapses. The US showed it could use that system as a weapon. But the more it does, the more it motivates China to build its own parallel system, one where it doesn't need the West. So the real question isn't whether Huawei survives, it's whether the world is heading towards two separate tech ecosystems, one American-led, one Chinese-led. And if that happens, the impact won't just be felt in boardrooms or government offices. It will affect billions of people. The apps you use, the phones you buy, the networks you connect to. Huawei's story is dramatic. A small startup that grew into a giant only to be cut down by geopolitics, but it's also bigger than that. It shows us how much technology and power are now intertwined. A phone company turned into a symbol of national security. A brand became a battlefield. And in many ways, Huawei may be just the beginning. Because in the 21st century, the fight for global dominance won't be won with armies alone. It will be fought in labs, factories, and networks, with chips, code, and data. Huawei was the first company caught in this storm, but it won't be the last. Thanks for watching. Technology changes, but human nature doesn't. And that is what makes these stories so powerful. If you enjoy this Rise and Fall, share it. Someone else might need to see how fast things can change. Stay curious, stay creative, and I'll see you in the next one.